I'm going to present you a recent work. The field is not recent, but this analysis is recent. It's a joint work with colleagues of Department of Economics of Siena, Laetitia. And I changed the title because the other title was more original, but for the submission, we need a more old-fashioned title. So monetary incentive, environmental concern, and intention-commitment-behavior gap. So this work is based on a field experiment. It's a semi-field experiment. I will explain why. And we are focusing on the interaction between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation of individuals for doing pro-environmental behaviors. So for the motivation, of course, we know that a citizen has to adopt more pro-environmental behavior to reach the climate goals. And here we will focus on one way to implement policy, which is give some extrinsic motivation based on monetary incentives. So we will focus on monetary incentive effect on pro-environmental adoption, behavior adoption. And one potential problem issue when we are talking about monetary incentives, it's that it's not necessarily increasing the willingness to do pro-environmental behavior or even pro-social behavior. In fact, we can have two effects. The first one is a crowding effect. So crowding effect is when the monetary incentive seen as an extrinsic motivation enhance the intrinsic motivation. So at the end, it's a positive benefits. Or it can also undermine it. And this, in fact, in the empirical study, it's usually what is shown. We found crowding out effects. So the crowding out effect can be due to different psychological aspects, the aversion of control, the frustration, also the fact that we don't engage because of moral awareness, because it changes the morality of the action, and the self-image motivation also, for instance. The third point of this motivation, it's in fact many of the studies are based on intention. So the intention is declared intention or also hypothetical scenarios. So of course there is evidence of the gap between intention and behaviors, but it's difficult to measure. And also here we will also look to another dimension. We will look to the commitment, so the fact to engage themselves to do an action, not only declare to do it, but engage. So I will explain how we collect this information. So, and in addition, we want to know in the different stages, so the intention, commitment, behavior gap, what are the different effects of monetary incentives, because it can be different. So we have three main research questions. It's an overall question, but with three main questions. The first one is to what extent there is a gap between intention, commitment, and actual behavior in pro-environmental context. So to do so, we will measure the decision-making of individuals at the three stage. I will explain how we measure that. The second question is how do monetary incentives affect commitment and actual participation? Again, is it affecting only the intention, the commitment, or finally the participation? Can we sustain the behavior by incentivized using extrinsic motivation? And finally, the last question is about the interaction between intrinsic motivation, so internal motivation, extrinsic motivation, and does we observe crowding in or crowding out effect on the overall participation. So to do so, we assume that to have a baseline pre-existing internal motivation, so an intrinsic motivation, we use as a measure environmental concern of participants. We will measure the environmental concern of participants, and we assume that is our intrinsic motivation baseline. And then for the extrinsic motivation, we will use treatment in a laboratory. It's not in a laboratory, in the field. Used to work in laboratory, So for the experimental design, so this experimental design is a field, semi-field. We have 200 participants. We conduct this experiment in Strasbourg, and we didn't, associate or work with a big association of nature preservation, which is Alsace Nature. Of course, so the field experiment is we organize activity to litter cleanup. And we didn't choose the road and so on. It's Alsace Nature that did that because we have to go to specific place. So it was at the autumn, and it's just before the autumn rain. So it's specific place close to the river to be sure to clean, to avoid the accumulation and runoff of microplastic in the waterway. They know how to do that. They are really good at that. So we did this activity. And we have 2 treatments. So in fact, I say that it's a field, but it's a semi-field because to have some participants, we mimic an experimental laboratory experiment. So we send to around 500, even more, individuals an invitation to participate to a classic experiment without displaying the subject to avoid self-selection. And the only condition to participate, it was to be available on a certain slot, a Saturday morning for 2 hours, in presence in Strasbourg. And we told them that for participating to the study, they will receive 20 euros as classical experimental procedure. And just 5 days before participating, they will have to connect on a website to answer some questions, 20-minute question. And then the day of the slot, they will have to connect again really quickly, only 5 minutes, just to give the bank account information to be paid for the experiment. So there is 2 treatments. The first one is what we call the unpaid activity. So in fact, 5 days before, they connect on the survey. So we ask a couple of information. I will environmental concern and other characteristic information. And at the end of the survey, we say, oh, by the way, you told us that you were available on the next Saturday from 10 to 12. And in fact, we offer you the opportunity to participate to a litter cleanup activity organized by Alsace Nature Association. Do you want to participate, to join to this activity? Yes, no. So this is for the unpaid activity. Of course, we told them that it's totally anonymous, and they will still receive the 20 euro if they refuse to come. And we told them too that if they don't come to the activity, we just don't need them for the next Saturday, and they will just have to connect at the end of the day to put their bank account information. For the pay activity, of course, it's exactly the same, except that we add a sentence and say, and in addition, if you come to the activity, if you participate, you will receive an additional 20 euros. So this is to check if the extrinsic motivation will have some effect, and depending on the baseline intrinsic motivation. So that's why I said not entire field experiment, because we have this pre-post survey that allow us to measure some characteristics, and in particular, the environmental concern and the intention also, I will explain just after. And then we track the actual attendance. So in fact, when they said they register for the activity, we generated a QR code, and when they arrived, we scanned the QR code, and it was directly linked to the database to know they don't have to give any name and so on, but we can track who is coming. So this is the timeline. We just recruit the participants, they do the first survey, then there is an experimental session, which is in fact the activity, and the final plan. In fact, we will analyze 3 different variables in order to investigate the gap between intention, commitment, and action. So what we call intention. Intention is at the beginning of the survey, we ask them some information about their environmental concern, and then we present them different activities proposed by Alsace Nature. And we ask them, hypothetically, were you willing one day to do a litter cleanup with this Alsace Nature Association? Yes, no. So purely hypothetical. We call it intention. The second one is the commitment. So at the end of the first survey, we introduced the treatment, and we told them, would you like to participate in the litter cleanup organized next Saturday by Alsace Nature during the time slot initially reserved for the rest of the experiment? We told them that if they don't, they are free for doing whatever they want, and we just need their record at the end of the day for the bank account. And this is here where, for the paid treatment, we add the sentence, and if we come, you receive 20 euro in addition to the fixed fee for your participation. And the participation, of course, it's do they come or not at this litter cleanup. So we didn't lie to the participants. We were at the litter cleanup, but we don't say that we were the researcher. But we didn't lie. We didn't say that we were here as them or not. We just put the yellow jacket to coordinate, but we didn't. So it was really interesting. Okay, so now for the descriptive statistic, I will just go quickly on that. Of course, we have two samples, so we have to be sure that the sample are similar. So we ask plenty of characteristic questions, socio-demographic and so on. I just put a sum up, and we cannot control for all characteristics because we don't have a lot of participants. So we control only for the one where we know that there is significant difference. So here it was age, post-bac, but in fact, post-bac, we have mostly students. So in fact, the older they are, the more studies they have. So when we control for age, everything was controlled. And also at one point, during the survey, we asked them, do they think that the litter cleanup is relevant to protect the environment? And we asked them different kind of activity proposed by Alsace Nature. So for instance, there were tree plantation, control of illegal littering or some activities that Alsace Nature proposed. And interestingly, litter cleanup was the one that feels as the most effective for protection, direct protection of environment. And it was not significantly different, but it was almost significantly different, so we prefer to control for. Never mind, it has no effect at all. So for this, we release this issue. And we can investigate our main questions. So now for the general results. So here you have the percentage of participation, intention, and commitment. So I don't know what you expected of. For me, I was really pessimist, and my co-authors were really optimistic. So finally, we have a 50% of participation with no significant difference between the paid and unpaid. I will go into the details just after. And which is interesting here, it's, of course, there is no significant difference in intention here between the unpaid and paid treatment, because the intention was at the very beginning. We didn't introduce any treatment, so it's reassuring to have no significant difference here. For the commitment, in fact, oh, what happened? So for the commitment, in fact, offering 20 euros of reward increased commitment from 50 to 68%. It's significant, highly significant. But when then we look at the participation, we finally do not have such effect. So we have a drop-off between unpaid and paid, and it's even more important for the paid condition. So at the end, we have half of participants that effectively come to litter cleanup with us. And the difference here is not significantly different. And in addition, we see the clear gap between the intention, the commitment, and the real action. So at Swiss stage, we lose some participants, and in particular, when we are in the paid treatment, which means that if we stop at this stage to analyze the data, we will say, oh, okay, the paid treatment is effective, and we increase the participation. But when we look at the real participation, in fact, we only have 6 less persons, so it's not significant. So now for a more detailed result, because at the beginning, what we were, all are interesting questions, but we were really interested in the motivation and the relationship between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So who is really motivated by extrinsic motivation, the earning? And so we did this regression. So here it's all a logistic regression where we control for relevant variable. And we do for the intention, so the binary is do they intend or not, commitment, do they commit or not, and do they come or not. Did they come, sorry. We control for the environmental concern, the treatment effect, a constant, and we do two models for each, one which integrates the interaction between the environmental concern and the effect of the treatment, and the other not. So what we found overall, we found that monetary incentives boost commitment, but do not actually increase participation. So when we look at commitment, here we don't talk about the difference of the effect of the monetary incentives. There is no interaction, but we saw that indeed people that say, yes, I register for next Saturday, there is more people that say that when we paid. But finally, and as I already told you, we don't have a significant difference in the actual participation. And the second, I limit the result, and the second result is okay, but what we were interested in is okay, but since we have the same number of persons, of course it's cost inefficient because we have the same number of persons and in one treatment we have to pay them, but is there the same people with the same characteristic, or we just change the kind of population that came? So that's why we interact with the environmental concern. And in fact, we found that the people that are with the most environmental concern, so the more environmental concerned, are the ones that do not finally come when we paid, and at the contrary, the ones who not really care about the environment start to come when we paid them. So in fact, we have overall no effect, even if it's not efficient since we pay them, but we have a crowding out effect for the one that intrinsically motivated. I recall that here what we call intrinsically motivated, so we use the pre-existing environmental concern of individual. So at the end, we have the same number of persons in the two treatments, but they are not the same person. In one treatment, we have the ones that are really interesting on, and in the second one, we are the ones that just came for the cash, and we discourage the ones that were motivated. Again, probably because of self-image, motivation, frustration, control aversion, and so on. So the key finding is there is a clear gap between intention, commitment, and actual pro-environmental behavior. I will talk about Jaisen, of course, 1991, about the theory of planned behavior. We say that, okay, the best way to forecast a behavior is to take the intention. Here we see that there is a kind of problem. If I stay at the intention, we don't see significant effect, but it's normal because I didn't introduce the treatment. But at the commitment, if I just based my conclusion on the commitment, I will say, okay, the incentive is really efficient, while in fact they didn't come and they didn't do the action with us. The second is the monetary incentive increase commitment, but do not increase actual participation. So it's directly linked, but in fact, it has some boost, but finally, it doesn't sustain the disengagement 5 days after on the Saturday. And this can be explained with the work of Lindenberg-Estek, which it's alternative theory of the goal framing. It's the alternative theory. It's the goal framing theory, which says that, okay, external motivation, extrinsic motivation can motivate it, but in the long run, you have to have some heuristic motivation and normative motivation to keep the encouragement. And it's exactly what I see. We have a warm-up. They want to come just when we announce that they will receive 20 euros, but at the end, they don't come. So there is an effect on environmental concern for the unpaid treatment, but, and that's the last point, we found a crowding out effect. In fact, people that are really environmentally concerned finally don't come when we pay them. So that explains the lack of overall effect on participation and reveals heterogeneity in how intensive works. Of course, there is some limitation. So first, it's French student in Strasbourg, which Strasbourg is a very environmentally friendly city. So it can differ in other city or other population. Here, we choose to have a pro-social, pro-environmental effect because when we go to litter cleanup, we have some social interaction, and we know that social interaction also have some intrinsic motivation. So it can be different when, if we talk about other pro-environmental behavior. We have this fixed incentive of 20 euros, so we can vary it, and maybe it will change. I think if we provide a really huge monetary incentive, it can be indeed different. We have a show-up, because at the beginning, to avoid a selection effect on the participants, they have a show-up for like an experiment. So maybe we attract some more material-oriented participants. Just hypothetical, but here, I don't know how to do in a different way. For research avenues, so changing the PEB can be another study. Here we are talking about monetary incentive, but we know that many policies are in the negative monetary incentive, taxes and fines. Of course, it's also psychologically really different to lose contrary to gain. So we do not generalize to different kind of incentives. We can have also other moderators like autonomy, social identity, and so on, but was not the purpose of this study. And finally, it's only on 17 days, and of course we have to know if on the long run what happens on this kind of behaviors. And for the policy implication, just to conclude, we design, we know that a uniform monetary incentive policy may not suit intrinsically motivated individual. So I think I thank you very much. Your question and particularly your comments are very welcome. So we are about to submit this paper, so it's now. So thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation. It's really interesting. So you already talked about it in your limitation, but can you tell us a bit more on how you fix the 20 euros incentive?
In fact, it's just an average rate of remunerating in experiments. Okay. So it's, in fact, it was a slot of 2 hours, but effectively it was 1 hour and 50 minutes for the entire road. And so it's 20 euros average rate. It was really purely, we have to determine something. We also had budget constraints, of course. In fact, we have here, I present only 2 treatments, but we have 4 different treatments. And it was really a huge field experiment. It spent like more than 1 year to organize, and so we have constraints. So we do cost-benefit analysis. Yeah,
because I do think it's an important, potentially an important limitation or question to answer. I could probably send you, but I saw a similar paper, but regarding incentive for energy saving. And like they prove that the higher the monetary incentive, like the better to save energy. And that if this monetary incentive is pretty low or considered as low, then people will not change their behavior.
I think it's this, in fact...
it's maybe from Blasco.
Oh yeah, it's Blasco, and they show that crowding out is also more present when there is few incentives. And
but I mean, if you say
if I offer 10,000 euro, I think that the participant student will probably act differently. Yes, of course. I agree, but we have to make sure. Okay, so at least for a small incentive, we find this kind of effects.
Yes. Okay.
But even with a small incentive, we increase commitment.
Yes.
But finally, it doesn't translate it with behavior, but at least there's something happen.
Thank you for your presentation. We like it. I was just wondering, like, if you could precise maybe like some power consideration when you did your field experiment, because now you don't identify any effect for the participation, but maybe just because you don't have enough participants to detect the effect of, the incentives.
Since we have a similar population on both, we have 50-40%, so we can do a perfect Fisher test. It's the same population. And then in the logistic regression, so it's the 50% population, so logistics seems kind of okay tools. We control for a difference in population, and so it's a t-test besides, and it's significant. So we have 50-50.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
What I meant is like because you only have like it seems that the sample is quite small.
Yeah.
So maybe to identify a small effect, you don't have enough participants.
Ah, okay.
So I was wondering what was the power of like the statistical power of your experiment.
I didn't compute it. Okay.
And to understand what kind of effect with this pool of people you are able to detect and
yeah, you're right.
Maybe the effect of the experiment is smaller, but
You're right. I should probably. I mean, I look plenty of things, but I should probably write something about it in more details. Otherwise, I will say the same question than you.
I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, not. It's poor.
I would just be curious. You probably don't have this information, but if there's a way to know if any of the people who came to the cleanup go to a future cleanup as well with Alsace Nature or do anything else. No. That would be interesting to see if like doing
Yeah.
something initially helps push them to continue.
So we have some clue. So the thing is, at the end, we first it was really interesting because we did it, and they were like cleaning the trash of the other, and they were happy. It was really a good moment, and they asked us when is the next time, paid or unpaid. And what we did is in the final survey, we asked them, do you want to give your contact to Alsace Nature to participate to additional one? So we didn't analyze yet rigorously this data. We will, but also we still close of Alsace Nature because it was a big project, and so we still keep talking with them. For now, we have enough data, but the idea is to take back information from this field, but in maybe 1 year or so. There is some clue. We have some possibility. I don't know if we will have enough data, but we think about it. Maybe there is some issue, but. And the funny fact, just for the motivation, of course, it's, I mean, I'm not used to qualitative analysis, so maybe what is one mistake that I should bring someone which would know how to interview on the field. But it was really funny because for the 50 that said, okay, I will come from the paid, unpaid treatment, we have 44 that actually come, and the 6 write us. Say, I'm sorry, so it was, finally my mom take me a doctor appointment, the other, finally I didn't think, na. For the paid treatment, only 2 told us, finally I cannot come. And more interestingly, it was in the same slot at 10 hours. It's not the same road, but it was the same slot. And in the unpaid treatment, everyone was on time. And in the unpaid, and in the paid treatment, like 80% was not on time. So we were waiting, and it's kind of signal of motivation. But then we have additional, it's not this paper, it's another paper on the effect on, of well-being. In fact, my co-author is a well-being economist. So we track the well-being and the warm-up at different stage. And in fact, even those who are paid finally takes benefit from the experience.